Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the National Athletic Healthcare Association. Today, I'm exceptionally honored to have Casey Young with us, who is a health and fitness expert as well as a dietary expert. And she's going to teach us the beginner's guide to starting exercise. And I'm super excited. Welcome, Casey. Thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Hello, Sean. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm excited to be here. It is obviously one of my favorite topics. I love talking about fitness and especially helping people get started with their fitness journey. So thank you for having me today.
No problem. One thing I want to do is just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. I just want to read a disclaimer that's super important, I think. And that is information presented today is intended for education, collaboration, and to initiate a social conversation about health. All attempts will be made to assure the accuracy of the information presented. Science and evidence are, however, fluid, and all information and opinions are subject to change. We will all learn and grow together in a collaborative, continuous process and improving health for all. So, excellent. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over the mic to you and let you guide us on how to stay healthy.
All right, we've got a couple days we're going to talk then, I think, right?
Yeah,
Kidding.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, definitely, as you mentioned, I'm a registered dietitian, certified personal trainer. My focus is nutrition and fitness in my work with my clients. And fitness is a big important piece. It's something that a lot of people want to get started with, and perhaps they haven't been active in a very long time. Perhaps they are, just not sure exactly what they should be doing. Maybe they've never really done a whole lot of exercise in their life before, but they're excited or interested in getting started. So it's kind of a great opportunity to work with these individuals and help guide them in the right direction and give them some good foundational things that they can build on to move forward with their journey. So it's a great place to be as far as fitness. I think it's an exciting, component of health. Absolutely. So my job is to work with my clients to help them build sustainable habits, where they're being able to incorporate fitness into their life for the long term. I really like to avoid focusing on it's a 6-week program, or, we're going to go on this diet, or you're going to get fit and, do that kind of thing. It's more along the lines of sustainable habits, building those key foundational pieces into your routine so you can continue for the long term and continue to see the benefits of fitness in your life.
One of the things that I think is really important is we always say that part of the goals of the National Athletic Healthcare Association is to be an evidence-based organization. We're going to focus on the target, and the target really centers around exercise, nutrition, and healthy life patterns. And I think that this is really a great program for the 95% of the population that either hasn't done a lot of exercise in a very long time or has never exercised at all. There is a lot of anxiety surrounding it. And I think that there's a lot of pressure people feel to all of a sudden become this athlete that maybe they've never been before. So if I'm a client, I'm new to exercise, I contact you and I come into your office, what's one of the first things that you're going to tell me? How are you going to guide me through this?
Great question. So if you haven't been active much at all previously, perhaps you're a little intimidated on getting started. So definitely try to reassure you and encourage and support you, and cheer you on as far as you're making a great choice. So that's a good first step. But basically, what I would do is we're going to start incredibly slow. We're going to focus on incorporating movement, incorporating daily movement into your day-to-day, routine. So often if someone has not been active at all, I will just encourage perhaps maybe some easy walking throughout the day. And we're starting with 5-10 minute walks. It's not, you're going to go out and walk for 45 minutes. We're just kind of starting to build that movement and build that habit. So I would talk with the client about, when when do you see this fitting best into your day? Maybe they're a morning person and they're up early anyway. Maybe they are not a morning person. And if you suggest that they get up at 6 a.m. and work out, it is not going to happen. So really trying to help them think through their day and where this activity might fit best for them. And then we start very small and we set a small goal. Like, okay, let's get, 1 to 2 walks in this week. Here's when you're going to do it. you know, record it, tell me when you've got it done. There's a little bit of accountability built in for sure. And then just support them and encourage them in that first step. I think sometimes making that first step can be the most challenging. So if you can just make it small and manageable and doable, and maybe they go on 1 walk or 2 walks that week, and they kind of start to build, that confidence in themselves. This is something that I can do. And you know what? Maybe I can go 3 walks next week. So really just starting, definitely meeting the client where they're at. If they haven't been doing anything, you need to really just ease them in. I wouldn't throw a huge routine of strength training at them if they have not been moving, over the last 5 years. They need to start with just some basic movement.
There is a great program that's out there called Exercise is Medicine, which is really initiated through the American College of Sports Medicine Physicians, which really teaches physicians how to prescribe exercise. And I think that when we look at vital signs, people come in and we measure certain metrics, which we deem are necessary to gauge health in an individual, which often we really don't look at or pay enough attention to regardless. But what we don't do is ask that really important variable is, how active are you? What's your lifestyle like? And that's something that this program does. And I think that we as physicians really, and other health professionals really should start engaging with is, hey, what's your health plan? And so Exercise is Medicine is really about prescribing exercise to individuals. And that's something that certified professional trainers and other individuals in those health fields have been doing for such a long time. Mm-hmm. And we need to really learn how to incorporate that into our own each everyday office visit.
Yeah, I think having that support coming from the medical doctor would be huge, having that recommendation, having that conversation. I think it is something that is overlooked a lot, but the more that it is talked about and the more that the patient understands the importance of that, especially coming from their physician who they're trusting for their care. Doctors talking to me about exercise. That's interesting. I thought he was just going to give me, some medication or write me a prescription, but, really focusing in on that exercise as part of their plan and their treatment plan and their medicine, so to speak. That's amazing. That would be fantastic.
Making individuals responsible and part of their own care is so engaging for individuals. And it's also motivating too. I think one of the long-term goals in our health system is moving that needle more towards the health aspect of healthcare instead of just a reactionary disease-based model. One of my challenges is we often see people after they've had disease. We often have conversations about health after they get disease. And we really don't have good metrics, or, we maybe measure some lab tests like a hemoglobin A1C or blood pressures or this or that once every 3 to 6 months. But how are individuals, how do we actually give them personal process? And that's where I think is great. So Casey, I hear you want to start off low and slow, and I'm going to go through my own kind of thoughts later, but I love that. Now, for you, especially as we grow older, we're going to do more programs in the future on balance and strength, especially in maybe the geriatric population, or, I'm kind of reaching past that 50 age now and, getting past that. Now, help me out. Are you starting them with aerobic, with stretching, with was strengthening? What is your first goal as a personal trainer?
Great question. So I really don't do a whole lot of personal training. COVID kind of slowed that down a lot, but what I do offer is a virtual fitness program. So I can kind of work with anyone all over the country, and they can hop onto my platform and do my workouts right along with me. So what I've got to help everyone kind of transition in there is I have built a beginner strength series. So it's a total of 8 workouts, and we start with workout number 1, and we go very slowly. I provide a lot of instruction and direction on form and technique, because that is so important for continued progress, for prevention of injury, and we're helping them basically get the results that they're looking for out of the time that they're putting in. So with my beginner strength workouts, I would start with just some very basic foundational strength type exercises, things like squats and a dumbbell chest press, and perhaps a shoulder press, some lunges, those kinds of things. But we really started slow in the fact of breaking down the form and the technique, talking about how should your body look, watching your form in a mirror so you can kind of see that, because it's not one-to-one, I can't see them. So I need for them to rely on their own feedback as far as, what am I doing? But verbally and visually, I'm providing a lot of that instruction. I think personal training, I will say this, in the personal setting is ideal, right? If you can work with a trainer to visually see your form and to help you right hands-on, to me, that would be ideal. It's just not realistic for a lot of individuals, so I wanted to offer guidance and direction for some clients who just don't have access to that. For one, it's a lot more expensive. When you're meeting one-to-one with a personal trainer, it requires you to travel to a gym, where this way they can kind of get that direction at home. But again, it is not ideal because I'm not right there looking at their form. But basically walking them through some, very foundational lifts. And I always even initially don't even pick up the weights, just focus on the form, do this. And we go very low repetitions. So we're starting with maybe 4 to 6, reps, where ideally I will work my clients up to more of an 8 to 12 rep window. So very low reps, very low or no weights, and just really focusing on good form and technique, being very mindful of, what is this lift designed to work and where am I feeling it? So really kind of giving them that direction. You should feel it in your backside. You should feel it in your quads, kind of giving them some keys to focus in on as they move forward. So first couple of workouts are just very instruction heavy, and giving them reminders on form and technique so they can master that. And then from there, we slowly increase the weight, we slowly increase the reps. We do additional rounds of the workout. So really kind of just helping them build that foundation. And the feedback that I've gotten from the clients is, because it felt so slow to me. I thought, gosh, I should be kind of, pushing them a little bit more, because that's what a trainer does, right? But they felt confident. They didn't feel like they were out of their league or, in over their head, because they felt like they could do these moves. And many of them told me, the next day or two, like, oh, I actually really felt that. I didn't think I was when I was doing that exercise, but it's because their body isn't accustomed to it. So taking it slow from the start is very important. But it just kind of helped them, have like that one thing that I could do this. I did this 30-minute workout, and now I can do the next one, and building on that success moving forward.
I think one of the important things is to, individuals need to remember, hey, the initial goal is probably a few aspects, and that is just to wake up those muscles and joints that you're telling them what you're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it may have been years, if ever, that these types of movements have been performed, and all of a sudden your muscles are going, hey, whoa. And the other aspect is you may have aches, pains, and little tears that you weren't aware of. Mm-hmm. And, the other aspect is, listen, when I get motivated, when I'm finally there, I want to get everything done at once. And, I'm past 50 now. And I got to tell you, I'm not 20 anymore. And sometimes it takes getting, a little sore or injured to make me realize that. It was kind of interesting the other day. I raced my daughter, who's 11, the other day, and I'm like, whatever. So we get off and start off on this sprint, and I'm like, yeah, hon,
Oh.
I let you win. I was just being a good dad. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And so you realize things change, and it's important to make sure that you let your body know what you're going to be doing through that process.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Warming it up for sure. Another thing I see so often with my clients who are primarily women uh, is such a weak core. Okay. So whether it be because of multiple pregnancies, perhaps C-sections, perhaps just not doing a whole lot, we don't have to engage that core very often if we're not doing a whole lot of activity. So a lot of women come into my program with a very weak core, which makes doing a lot of these exercises really challenging. It's difficult to hold the proper form and technique if you can't hold that core in nice and tight. So I think just helping them recognize that yes, you're not where you want to be, but you really have to be aware that right now you may not be able to do some of these lifts um, appropriately or hold that form and technique appropriately, no matter how hard you're trying, because you're just limited with those, with that core being so weak at this point. So that's something that I see often, and as they get stronger and as they continue to do these lifts, it improves. Absolutely improves. And it's not
Absolutely.
just by doing crunches, it's by doing the actual strength exercises and engaging that core and pulling those deep abdominal muscles in that helps them make that
I
progress.
think one of the important parts too is to make sure you talk a lot about form, and I always think back to when we were in fifth grade and you haven't done it, your abdominals aren't necessarily strong. Then all of a sudden, you have that gym day where everybody holds the feet and you're supposed to do, 50 crunches, and then you're supposed to climb the rope up to the top or whatever it is that's going to do. And it's like, it becomes a more of a kind of a measurement of challenge and your bravado and how tough you are, rather than saying, hey guys, let's teach you about health and how to stay strong, and making sure that we do this in a safe, appropriate manner. When
Right.
you start working with your clients, do you encourage a lot of stretching in the beginning, or is it, I've heard variable fitness influencers, some are saying, yeah, you need to, some say, no, it's not as effective. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so with every workout I do, I always start with a dynamic warm up. So movement based kind of stretching, slowly starting with the workout, picking up the intensity of the movement as we go along through the warm up. So we generally do that. For sure at the end of the workout, we're doing, some additional stretching after every time. Stretching in between, often I will, recommend that. I'm a fan of the foam roller. They say it's just a really inexpensive. Actually, mine's over there. I was using it yesterday. It's a really inexpensive, tool, but it can be very valuable as far as helping with some of that muscle soreness and also getting those muscles warmed up if you're doing it prior to the exercise. So definitely would work with each individual client and kind of guide them in that direction. But I think stretching can be very valuable, absolutely important. Movement based warm up at the beginning of the workout, and then doing some additional stretching afterwards.
I'm going to address this a little bit more in a minute, but one of the important parts for me is what I call removing barriers of success. We all interpersonally use excuses or barriers, whether it's time or I don't have this or that or the knowledge. And I think that's one of the aspects that we really want to do as a team together, is teach individuals how to remove those barriers. So now the only barrier is you just doing it. And so some of the things other than time, obviously, which is the number one barrier that is discussed, is you already mentioned it, but is a place to work out. And so everybody goes, yeah, I'm going to get a gym membership soon. And I always say, listen, gym memberships are fine, but they often fail. And have an at-home plan, which I think is really important. You already mentioned it, but the second aspect of that I want to ask about is you mentioned weights. A lot of my patients may not know where or how or cost prohibitive to going out and actually buying weights, and they're intimidated by using them. Do you have any at-home workout plans that don't involve buying equipment?
Great question. I guess the answer would be beyond that first workout or two in my beginner strength series. No, but I would try to help that client remove that barrier. As far as, 5 and 8 pound dumbbells are pretty accessible and they're fairly inexpensive. So I encourage, clients who are wanting to get started with strength training, rather than go pay that, $50, $60 a month at the membership at the gym, which makes it more
Yeah.
challenging for you to get there. Invest in a little bit of equipment at home. You can use resistance bands, which are even less expensive and more accessible. You can travel with them, or take them places. That is an option. So if someone is really just like, I can't get the dumbbells, I would say if you can afford $8 for the pack of the resistance bands, you can do most of the exercises. I do in my workouts with the bands as well. But just, having that accessible at home, if it's something that they're going to continue with, I always say it's worth the investment. 5 and 8 pound dumbbells, you could probably get those for less than $30 total and have at home.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's a small investment into health.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because I've seen a lot of individuals MacGyver up their own kind of health equipment. I think, we've all seen this, but it's interesting. I had this couple who showed me their kind of at-home gym, but they used everything from plastic milk containers, which they filled with some with water, some with pennies. They used all kinds of different kind of things that they had in their yard or at home. Did they know what they weighed? No, but they provided some kind of mechanisms of resistance. And I think that's really kind of, and I said, hey, listen, if it's getting you moving, it's getting you moving. And that's fantastic. I support it,
Yeah, definitely. During the pandemic or the peak of the pandemic and the lockdowns, everything going on, it was challenging to even find the 5 or 8 pound dumbbells because people were wanting to have that at home. So I saw some really creative videos out there of people using a lot of different things, putting their 80-pound dog on their back and doing squats with that. I thought that's great.
Yeah.
So yes, I support that. I think it's a great idea if you truly don't have access and can't get the hand weights going. There definitely are things that you could use in your home. A lot of my workouts do incorporate some body weight movements, so things like wall sits or wall push-ups or sit to stand. There's enough of the resistance type exercises that you really can do without having weights. So that is a good point. I should put together a no equipment resistance based workout together. I'll get that one added to my platform. Thanks for the idea.
And I think that it depends also on our goals. Like, for instance, a lot of my individuals, as they get older, balance is a goal. So we kind of, maybe work on some of those considerations, for gait and balance and all of that, which I think is really a good, important aspect to get through. Because what's really necessary is for us to make sure that we're incorporating exercise programs, not just for 20 and early 30-year-olds, but as individuals get older. You're a big individual for fitness, especially past 40. And I know that you work a lot in the strength kind of gains more than the aerobic kind of gains. What do you think is the benefit of strength over aerobics if you had to choose one versus the other?
Great question. So certainly the aerobic type activity is going to provide the cardiovascular benefit, keeping our heart and lungs healthy. I think it can be great for mental health purposes, stress reduction. I love my walks. Occasionally I'll go out on my jogs. I love biking. I think it's good for a lot of a lot of really good things. For my kind of target population, the women that I mostly work with are, I probably would say most of them are in their 40s, 40 to that 60-year-old range. And many of them are working at weight loss, at fat loss. They want to be fit. And so strength training to me is just a, like no brainer. If you want to have that fit kind of muscle definition look to you, you need to strength train, and yes, the cardio will help you burn calories, and it will help you, stay cardiovascular fit, and it will help you with some of that stress reduction. But if you've got limited time, you should be prioritizing your time in the strength training realm, because it's going to help you maintain or build your lean muscle mass as you're losing fat, if that's your goal. So that's
And
kind of my focus with my population.
absolutely is in as we get older, strength training provides so much more than I think we were all, as physicians aware of before. I know that we talked before on podcast about a term called sarcopenia, which means just muscle loss, basically, as we get older. And it really is a risk factor for disease and unhealth as we grow older into our 60s and 70s. Especially, we naturally lose our muscle motor cells, and so I think that keeping those as long and as strong as possible are super important. And I'm becoming more of a believer in that muscle strength era. I definitely get it now, because it does cause such an impact on individuals. Excuse me. So I had a couple of my own thoughts, and I want you to comment as we go through there. And I kind of wrote down some on my own. I have to put on my old man glasses because things change, right? So in my beginner's guide to kind of working out, one thing that I start off with is make your healthcare provider aware of and part of your plan. And I really do this for a few reasons. Number one is maybe you have some health issues that your physician wants to address with. Number two, though, when you start engaging other people, it gets you excited and them excited. They can ask you and kind of monitor how that's going. And I think the third thing to that is most physicians, or no, I shouldn't say most, many physicians don't incorporate or necessarily engage with that type of discussion. That's only a disease-based model. And so we really want to get them involved into maybe, hey, they'll ask the next patient that. Now they're starting to think on that health realm. Number two is don't try to build Rome in a day, right? We haven't done this in a long time. Let's kind of work through this. This is a long-term lifestyle and not a short-term goal. And you already mentioned that. Number three is make this your life goal. Motivation is good, but not necessary. Most people say, I'm not motivated. Well, maybe you just incorporate, this is part of your job. I don't want to go to work every day, but I do because it's part of my life now. And just making sure that when it's time, and you do it without whining to yourself. That's important. Number four, keep it simple and safe. And a lot of these things you've already mentioned, you've already guided us through there. These are things that I'm kind of parodying, just making sure that we summarize it. And that is that when I watch some of the social media programs where these young 20-year-old ripped individuals are showing us these really complicated, it's intimidating for us older individuals or people who haven't worked out. And it can be very unsafe. Just keep the exercises basic and work through the program processing that we're able to do at the moment in time. Start off low and slow. You already said that, and I think that's perfectly great advice. Focus on technique over speed and force. Be intentional and time efficient. And what I mean by that is, listen, if time is a barrier and an intimidation, I just don't have time, make sure that when you do it, that your time counts, that you aren't taking time answering calls, look at emails, or talking socially with other individuals, which is often a problem at gyms, but that you move through your exercises in a consistent and relatively rapid fashion, as long as it's safe. This is a big one for me, and that is be prepared. And what I mean by that is I will use any excuse at times not to exercise. If I get up and the shoes that I use are tied, it's just not a good day. Or my clothes aren't out, right? Or it's cold out, or whatever it is. So apparel and equipment should be laid out and ready. Routine should be planned out. What are you going to do today? Location. Gyms are good, but often fail. Have an at-home plan. This is one that you and I will talk about, I think, as we go through our conversations together, because I know that one of your clients' goals are weight loss. But one of the things that I always say is determine what metrics and measurements work for you. I think the most important one is health should be a long-term continuous goal, not necessarily a short. And this is one we kind of had some brief conversations, but weight may not be a good metric for everyone. But here's kind of why I say that. For me to say, hey, you're heavy, or some have even used fat, or whatever the word is, it's a negative suppression. It's not a positive uplifting, and it doesn't do anything. So what I say is, hey, are you ready to get healthy with me? Now it's engaged. They get it. They already know what I'm talking about. We don't have to say that out loud. I often don't necessarily weigh my patients unless it's for a particular health reason, because when individuals stare at that scale, it can be self-defeating. I've worked out for 2 weeks and I'm only 2 pounds. Well, maybe you gain 5 pounds of muscle and you just aren't realizing it. So I just want to make sure that people don't focus on weight as their only metric, because it can be often frustrating for individuals long-term. So that's just a different. I don't know what your thoughts are on how are your clients working with that?
Yeah, for sure on that last point, as far as not focusing on the scale. I my clients come to me and they say, I want to lose weight. And I got to dig a little deeper, like exactly like what you said. Do you really want to lose weight? Is it just about the number on the scale? Or do you want to feel good? Do you want to have more energy? Do you want to maybe fit a little better into those jeans that you wore a couple of years ago? That is what they want. It becomes less about the scale and more about how do I feel about my body. Wow, I'm getting so much stronger. That builds that confidence in them. It flows into so many other aspects. So absolutely, we look at so many different measures of progress. Sometimes I tell my clients, I don't even want you to get on the scale. Like, you don't have to weigh in for me. If it's messing with you, if it's causing you to be frustrated, or if it causes you to have a bad day, put the scale away. I will lead by example there. I have not weighed myself in, I can't even tell you how long. Last time I went to the doctor, I didn't even look. Like, it's become such of a non thing for me. It's better when I don't. So I encourage my clients to, use the scale if they can do that objectively, and if it helps them as to be a measure of their progress. But we look at a lot of different outcomes, and we celebrate all kinds of non-scale victories. Those are my favorite. How are you feeling? Tell me about how much heavier weights you're lifting. Tell me about that that tank top that you put on and you felt good about yourself because of the work that you're doing, rather than, oh, I lost 3 pounds. Like, who cares?
Yeah. Celebrate time, energy, and effort, and generally just how you feel, I think, is important, because our goal is not to be skinny or beautiful, but just simply live healthy.
Absolutely.
I think this is an important one that I've had, and it's when we look at just the fitness we're doing, we also have to make sure our other kind of metrics of personal health is make sure you conform the other parts of your health to match what you're doing now. So if you're a smoker, work on stop smoking, work on your alcohol consumption. It's really, really important. We focus on pillars of body, which includes exercise and nutrition. Make sure that you focus, and you being that registered dietitian, we're going to talk with you in the future about exercise and nutrition, which I think is, really exciting. But focus on the body, the mind, make sure that you have a good mindset. Do you need some meditation involved? Do you need to make sure that you get your mindset right with your goals? Work on the sociability of what you're doing and how you're engaging the other people around you. If you've had really challenging habits in the past, maybe you need to just let other individuals know, hey, listen, I have these health goals to help me be successful in that. If you have some influences that may not be the most positive towards your goals. When you start exercising, I think one of the things, isn't it catchy? People start wanting to be like you, and you get this group think. I think it's awesome. But also it helps if you encourage. One thing that I do is when I talk to patients about health, right after a stroke, and I always see the family members going, yeah, yeah. And then I turn and I go, yeah, but you have to do it too.
Yeah.
And some go, yeah, but I haven't had the stroke. Exactly. Right.
Right.
And then the last thing that I think is important, and I always say this in all of my talks, and that is I have a saying, it's wealth is the accumulation of happiness. When you think about what it means to be wealthy, we really want the goal of happiness. Just be happy with yourself, what you're doing each and every day. And I think that that's going to be a real positive sense to it all. So,
yeah,
all right.
good.
So
I love that. I love that.
These are some questions that have kind of come out from individuals that wanted to kind of write in and ask some questions. So this is Nikki Macahon. And so she is here with us, and she is kind of our all around technical, kind of giving us advice on everything. So this is awesome, but thank you so much. So yeah.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi. Yes, my name is, I'm so sorry to do this now live, but it's actually Macahon. Everybody messes it up. Like, it is exactly how it sounds, and that's what trips people up the most, because it seems like you shouldn't.
You've told me that before, and I've messed it up before, and I'll mess it up again. I promise.
Oh, no.
Don't worry about it. Anyway, so I'm excited to start my fitness journey, but also I'm terrified. So how do I fix my attitude towards working out? I mean, you guys have discussed a lot about how confidence is key, starting small is key, finding goals outside of like weight loss or bulk gain or anything like that. Those are all key. But I've always grown up with the mentality that like working out is intrinsically about suffering to make yourself better, or like it is a competitive thing. Like it's always, for me at the very least, and I'm sure that there are people who have had different experiences, like been centered around sports and competition. And I am just not a competitive person, mostly because I'm a sore loser. So how do I fix my attitude around that? How do I stop being intimidated by working out?
Yeah, great question. So I would probably dig a little bit deeper, although you explained it a little bit, like you didn't grow up, doing sports, you're, a little bit, you kind of, your idea of what fitness is kind of over here. So I would probably ask a few more questions, what is it about that? What do what have you experienced in the past that makes you believe that? Tell me about one positive experience, one time in your life where fitness was a positive experience. Tell me more about that. And then from there, depending on the answers to those questions, I would probably just really encourage and support and focus on, some of the positive things a lot of the positive things that can come from incorporating more activity into your life and really making it enjoyable to that client. So what is it that you maybe would like to do, and let's kind of build on that. Maybe you're somebody who really enjoys hiking, so let's work that into your fitness plan. Maybe you're somebody who used to swim as a kid and that was fun for you. Well, can you get into accessing a pool and do that more regularly? Of course, there's challenges, barriers and that kind of thing, but really just trying to make it an enjoyable experience for that individual and encouraging and supporting them along the way and giving them those small victories where they gain that confidence and they actually start to feel good about their efforts in that activity. That's kind of where I would go.
That's really cool.
I could wave a magic wand and change their attitude. I could do a lot, but I can't do that.
So like finding ways to make goals around doing activities that you want to do or fulfilling goals that you want to do rather than just the goal of being better, almost the nebulous goal that we're all reaching for. I gotcha.
Yeah, maybe taking the the focus off the outcome and focus on more of the experience and what can you do to enjoy that experience. It doesn't have to be about, I need to exercise for 45 minutes or, those totals, or I'm looking to drop 5 pounds, those are challenges. Those are tough to reach, so focus on the behavior itself.
I like
That's
that.
awesome.
I like that. That's actually excellent advice.
So my next one is, and again, this is something that we've already touched on during the recording or the podcast, I should say. How do I know that my workout is working out for me outside of those goals of like, I've hit 45 minutes, or I can plank now for more than 10 seconds without crying, or whatchamacallit, I've lost X amount of pounds. Like, should I feel any different, like socially, mentally, energy wise, stuff like that?
Yeah. So just having some of those, you know, basic outcomes where, I know I'm grabbing a heavier weight. I know I'm holding this plank a little bit longer. Those are very, telling ways that your body is making progress. But absolutely focusing on at where's my stress level at? Maybe I'm still in the same stressful working situation at work. I've got all the stress, but I seem to be managing it so much better since I've started incorporating this activity. Sleep, I think, is a huge piece. I hear that all the time when clients start exercising and eating healthier. All of a sudden I am sleeping so much better, which is just good for so many other parts of our health. So I would focus on, energy, mood, sleep, and then of course some of those, more measurable outcomes.
I think people forget that sleep aspect part of their lifestyle. It can be so disruptive. It really causes some depression, motivation, and that's bringing up depression is also another aspect to making sure that you treat your mental health appropriately. And people, if they haven't engaged in exercise, don't really realize how much exercising on a daily basis really improves mood and outcome. I've had patients before who were on fair bits of antidepressant medications be able to come off of them completely once they start exercising on a regular routine. It really is empowering.
But also, just to make sure, this isn't medical advice to, if you exercise, you can go off your antidepressants. That's a journey that you take with your psychiatrist.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's a good point. You're absolutely right. Yep. You are correct on that. Always, speak with your physician on where you're at with that. It is important. But, I think that we tend in this country to utilize a lot of pills in lieu of the health aspect. And, hopefully working with your physicians on that basis will help teach you a better way of staying and learning how to be healthy, and also teaching physicians on how to engage patients to do that.
Absolutely. Which is awesome, because another great thing that I took away from this podcast, just listening to you guys, is the importance of building around like a fully robust community around exercise, like including your physician in these talks, including your medical team if you have it. Like, I know a couple of people who like have autoimmune diseases, who have so many different types of physicians, and they want to incorporate exercise, even though it can be really difficult for people with autoimmune diseases. So they're consulting with like their PCP and this specialist and that specialist, and maybe even their chiropractor or something like that. So to some extent, including all those people in on the conversation, and also including your community on the conversation, whether or not it's bringing a couple of friends along with you for the ride, or just saying, we're going to watch you and we're going to be really proud of you.
Yeah. I think on that note, I just to make the point is, I often have individuals with some condition or disease, and that's horrible. I'm sorry for that. But on that note, can we take the rest of what you can do and optimize the health as much as possible? Only because it'll make the rest of you feel as good as possible. So hopefully, that condition that you have is not necessarily a barrier. Exercise is part of that health plan, and we're learning more as we go along. I work a lot with ALS patients. We still aren't sure 100% what to do with ALS patients and exercise, but we do know, or I do know, that a lot of my patients feel better when they continue to exercise on a more continuous basis. It helps their mental status as much as possible. So it's good.
Alrighty. So another question that I had is exercises during the pandemic. We've talked about the difference between having a gym membership and having a home program. Let's say that you do need that social aspect and you do still want to go to the gym and you're doing it safely, like you're vaccinated, or you want to wear a mask just to make sure that even if all precautions have been taken, let's do that extra mile and make sure that we're not spreading the disease inadvertently. Are there any exercises that you guys recommend that you can do with a mask and not have it be like, oh, it's suffocating?
So right, I would, I would kind of steer more towards the strength training aspect, which is something I'm going to promote anyway. I think it might be very challenging to be huffing and puffing, getting that, cardiovascular system working pretty heavily, like on a treadmill or doing some really intense, work on the elliptical or stepper machine. You're probably expending more oxygen and utilizing that higher heart rate, rapid breathing. And so I think wearing a mask might be a little bit more challenging with that. Perhaps you could take those cardiovascular parts of your exercise outside, maybe go for an outdoor run or an outdoor brisk walk. That would be helpful. Strength training with a mask. I mean, yes, you're getting your heart rate up, but it's not for the duration of like a 20 to 30-minute jog would. So I think for most individuals, it would be less challenging to wear a mask in the gym if you are doing more of the lifting activities. And then again, you may not be right on top of someone either, because perhaps the next treadmill is right next to you. And depending on the setting of the gym, you may be able to space out a little bit more and not necessarily be right on top of your, workout buddy. So
Something I didn't talk about earlier, real briefly on that, just talking about just the weight training aspect, and should mention it, that people forget, if you do your weight training intentionally, meaning that you're not lollygagging around a lot, it can be an aerobic process as well. So you can
Definitely.
get a 2-for-1 there. It's not the same maybe as a high intensity on a treadmill, but maybe you're not ready for that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so if you've ever done weight training and you're sitting there and you're doing your sets and the right dose that's right for you, trust me, you'll get that aerobic capacitance kicking in for you.
Definitely ask any of my clients, especially when we do combo moves. We get that heart rate up good and high, and then we take a little 20 to 40-second break and go back to it. So it definitely, I agree, can definitely be a more of a cardiovascular exercise depending on how you're timing everything out. So good point.
Well, Casey Young, I want to thank you so much again for being here. We have some upcoming podcasts with you in the future talking about diet and exercise. Some questions not to be answered today, but that I'm thinking is how do we go from wanting, or some people who want a calorie deficit, to strength training? How do we pair that? How do we match that up with those goals? We're also going to be talking about some biometrics of health, and we're going to be talking about staying healthy even into our 70s and upward, and what are some of the thoughts and exercise recommendations from there. And then the last thing is that I really want to get into this, and that's youth and exercise, because remember that we have to set the example that our kids are going to follow. And it's really important. That's a lifelong and, inherited kind of pattern, as you will, and making sure we set them up for health. So thank you again. And I appreciate it. We look forward to having you in the future, to make sure that we engage together in how to stay healthy.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on today. I really enjoyed it.